Could you please advise if you can hear me now? Anyone, if you can hear me now, please. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Great. My name is Olga Rudnitskaya, and I'm legal advisor at Eltoma Corporate Services. It's my pleasure to attend this event today, and we will cover the topics tax residency in Cyprus under the new 60-day rule. So, what we will discuss with you today is first tax residency general application, Cyprus tax residency rules. We will discuss with you general rule and the new 60-day rule. Then we will turn to procedure to obtain Cyprus tax residency under this 60-day rule for United European Union nationals and for third country nationals. And we will cover with you main tax guidelines for Cyprus tax residents. So, what is the actual definition of tax residency? So, first of all, the criteria for residence for tax purposes vary considerably from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and residence itself can be different for other non-tax purposes. So, for example, for individuals, physical presence in a jurisdiction is the main test. Some jurisdictions also determine the residency of an individual by reference to a variety of other factors, such as the ownership or of some home, maybe, or apartment, or availability of accommodation, family, and his financial interests. For companies or some other legal entities, some jurisdictions determine the residence of a corporation based on its place of incorporation. Other jurisdictions determine the residence of a corporation by reference to its place of management, and some countries use both a place of incorporation test and a place of management test. So what is actually the domicile? Domicile is in common law jurisdictions is a legal concept. It's a different legal concept in comparison to residence, though the two may lead to the same result. So, for example, domicile is the status or attribution of being a law permanent resident in a particular jurisdiction. A person can remain domiciled in a jurisdiction even after he has left it, if he has maintained sufficient links with that jurisdiction, or maybe has not displayed his intention to leave permanently the country. So, for example, if that person has moved to a different state, but has not yet formed an intention to remain there indefinitely. Traditionally, many common law jurisdictions consider the person's domicile to be a determinative factor in the conflict of laws and would only recognize a divorce conducted in another jurisdiction if at least one of the parties were domiciled there at the time it was conducted. So the criteria for residence in double taxation treaties may be different from those of domestic law. Residency in domestic law allows a country to create a tax claim based on the residence over a person, whereas in a double taxation treaty, it has the effect of restricting such tax claim in order to avoid double taxation. Residency or citizenship taxation systems are typically linked to worldwide taxation as opposed to territorial taxation, and therefore it is particularly relevant when two countries simultaneously claim a person to be resident within their jurisdiction. So, as you may see on your screens, Cyprus is applying the residency taxation systems, and which is typically linked with worldwide taxation and opposed to territorial one criteria. So turning to the next topic, we will discuss with you general rule and the new 60-day rule. So according to the general rule and according to the income tax law of 2002, an individual is resident in Cyprus if he or she resides therein for a period or more which in aggregate exceed 183 days. So in order to calculate the period of residence in Cyprus for tax purposes, we will consider the day of departure from Cyprus counts as a day of residence outside Cyprus. We will consider the day of arrival in Cyprus counts as a day of residence in Cyprus. We will consider arrival and departure from Cyprus in the same day counts as one day of residence in Cyprus, and departure and arrival in Cyprus in the same day counts as one day. So I will send you the link which in the chat box, which may be valuable for you to gain more information on the issue. I will send it now. So when we discuss 60-day rule with effect from the 1st January 2017, so on the 14th of July 2017, the Cyprus Parliament voted for a Cyprus tax law amendment, adding a second test, the 60-day rule, for the purposes of determining Cyprus tax residency for individuals. So the law amendment has been published in the official government gazette and has become effective as from the 1st of January 2017. So meaning that as from tax year 2017, an individual will be considered as a tax resident of Cyprus if the individual satisfies either the current 183-day rule or the new 60-day rule for the tax year. If you want to know more and maybe look through this law, you may find it following the link I will send you now. So the 60-day rule for Cyprus tax residency applies to individuals who is in the relevant tax year reside in Cyprus for at least 60 days, who do not reside in any other country for a period exceeding 183 days in aggregate, who is not a tax resident in another country, and have other defined Cyprus types, as for example, individual must carry out any business in Cyprus and or be employed in Cyprus and or maybe hold an office of a company tax resident in Cyprus at any time in the tax year, provided that such is not determined during the tax year, or maybe maintain in the tax year a permanent residential property in Cyprus, which is either owned or rented by this individual. So this is actually what you can see in slide we have discussed previously. So this is the main criteria to apply this 60-day rule. So reside in Cyprus for at least 60 days, do not reside in any other country for a period exceeding 183 days in aggregate, and not being a tax resident in any other country, and to have really defined Cyprus ties. So what are the common questions which may arise due to this topic? So first of all, first question is, can I apply only after being in Cyprus for 60 days? Actually, no, because you can apply at the beginning of the year, declaring that you intend to send at least 60 days during this year. The second question which may arise is, do I need to provide any confirmation regarding not being a tax resident in any other country? So regarding this question, again, no, because with an application, you don't need to provide any supportive evidence. You have to declare that you are not. However, in case of any investigation, you need to be able to prove that you are only a Cyprus resident. The next question is, how does the tax office check that I'm not spending more than 183 days at the end of the year in any other country? So currently, actually, there is no set precedent to this procedure, so you need to take this into account, and you need to have this ability to prove this if it is required. So then the next question can be, will tax office be checking the duration of my stay in Cyprus at the end of the year? So although there is no such precedent at the moment, and tax officers do not have a straightforward answer, they do stress out that as this is one of the main criteria to the identification of tax residency, you must keep all your trial receipts to be able to prove your aggregate duration of stay in Cyprus during the year. So what happens if I'm not compliant with one of the requirements? So in case you are not compliant with, and it is actually identified by the tax office, your tax residency will be easily cancelled. So the next question is, can I be only a shareholder of the business in Cyprus to satisfy these business ties criteria? So actually, no, you can't. You need to be employed or hold an office, maybe be a director of the company in Cyprus. And if we will discuss the last question, does it make any difference if I buy a property or rent a property? So actually, no, it doesn't make no difference. Maybe if you have any additional questions to this topic, you can send it to the in the chat box, and we will discuss it with you today after the webinar end, or maybe I will send you the answers to your emails after the webinar if we have no time after. Oh, actually, Maria, according to your question, can the individual be a director but earn no remuneration? Actually, yes, it can be. It can be written down in the resolution, which is accepted during the annual general meeting. So let's go to the next slide. So actually, the procedure to obtain Cyprus tax residency and the new 60-day rule. So the procedure to obtain these tax residency certificates, if you comply with all the conditions, is quite straightforward, and the difference in the process for there is a kind of difference in the process for European Union citizens and non-European Union citizens, and it comes from the process of satisfying the required criteria as discussed earlier. So as our ultimate goal is to obtain a tax certificate, let's start from the very end and trace back the steps. I'm sorry, maybe the quality of the picture is not very good, but I hope that you will see everything on your screens, which is required on this application. So Apart from very general details, as you can see, the first part requires to have TIN in order to apply for the certificate. So this is the application, how the application looks like, actually. The form contains self-declaration points covering all the requirements to be qualified to be tax resident in Cyprus. So if the intention to stay in Cyprus for 60 days, that you are not a tax resident in another country, you do not reside for more than 183 days in another country, and you are employed in Cyprus and either have a property or renting. So you have to declare the following. If for any reason I do not fulfill my intention or terminate in the above tax year the exercise of the business in Cyprus or my employment in Cyprus or the holding of an office in a Cyprus tax residence company, I undertake to inform the tax department and to return any relevant certificate for cancellation. I knowing that any erroneous or false statements is a criminal offense under the provision of the Assessment and Collection of Tax Law of 1978 as amended, hereby certify that the information given above is true and correct. So actually, application to obtain a tax residence certificate, the form we have already discussed, along with this application form, you should file some other documents. So, for example, copies of passport with stamps of exit and entry to Cyprus, boarding passes, electronic tickets, and some other documents which may be applicable where you might have. Then it can be property title or lease contract, and employment contract for the relevant tax year, or maybe any other proof of money earning on the Cyprus territory. So you also need to get registered with the tax office and obtain TIN before you can apply. So let's take a look at the process to obtain TIN. The application itself can be found here. I will send you the link now. This seems quite simple as well. However, let's have maybe a bit closer look at the requirements for the individual. We'll see it on the next slide. So you can see here that you're required to provide an alien registration certificate number. So you have to obtain a residency document in Cyprus. And this makes a significant difference to the process between European Union nationals and third countries. So, for example, you can see on this slide that European nationals have such kind of application, which can be found on the next link I'm sending to you. So this is the application for issue of registration certificate of union citizen, and his or her family members also European Union citizens. So it is straightforward to apply for a residency permit in Cyprus if you are a citizen in a European Union country or maybe Switzerland. So the correct term for it is a registration certificate for European Union citizens, and it is technically provide you the same rights as a Cypriot citizen. It is popularly known as the yellow slip, as it is printed on a yellow paper. And this document also provides you rights to work in Cyprus, and there is no need to apply for a separate work permit. So, what is the actual process of acquiring this uh, so-called your yellow slip or residency permit? So, you need to prepare required documents and visit the local immigration office in person. Appointment to visit shall be booked in advance. The appointment can be scheduled up to a few months later in certain cases, but not on average. A few weeks time is provided. So the required documents are as follows: completed application form, valid passport or identity card, 2 passport size photos, your rental contract or proof of purchase of property, proof of job, or preferably it can be preferably contract stating your salary. If you have proof of other types of income, bring this as well. If you are not working but studying or retiring to Cyprus, you should provide some other documents, some other application form. And upon provision of the application documents, your application is being reviewed, and the applicant is usually called for the next appointment once application is considered. Although it seems as the quite simple and straightforward process, we recommend to use our service to ensure that you receive your first appointment as soon as possible, that documents are submitted correctly and in full, actually. And if there are any problems, such problem can be discussed at the date of the submission. There are very unfortunate cases when, upon submission of the documents, your second meeting is scheduled few months later, or upon such a long wait, you receive a rejection due to the incorrectly submitted application, or a lack of such documents resulting to wait another few months potentially. So our company can ensure that your case is dealt in the quickest possible way and there are no unnecessary long delays in the process. So being a European citizen, European Union citizen, you can obtain residency permit in 4 weeks time depending on the circumstances. But if you are not citizen of the above mentioned countries, there are other requirements before you can acquire a permit, a work permit, residency, or citizenship in Cyprus. So what is the actual procedure for the people from the third countries out of European Union and Switzerland? So there are usually a few ways how you can apply for the residency permit. However, we shall take it into account that for our purpose, you will need to be employed in the Cyprus company. This narrows our options to only 2 routes. So to apply for work permit or to apply for naturalization through investment program. So during this presentation, we will review how to obtain work permit for third countries national. So the procedure for the non-European Union employee registration and employment in company of foreign interest, for example, Cyprus registered companies of foreign interest that fulfill eligibility criteria and registered to become eligible may apply for employment of third country nationals as executive directors, middle management, key personnel, or supporting staff. And if the company is registered as civil registration and migration department, as the company of foreign interest, it is much easier to obtain work permit for such country nationals. So a company of foreign interest, which is registered in Cyprus and has third country national company shareholders as a majority, including corporate shareholders, can register at Civil Register and Migration Department, providing that it delivers the following. The following. So, first of all, bank documents to demonstrate that a direct investment of 171,000 euro or above was made from abroad by the foreign company shareholders into a Cyprus bank account. So Cyprus bank account with minimum balance, there should be bank account in Cyprus with minimum balance of 41,006 euro. You should provide the department with the list of incorporation documents of the Cyprus company, with the list of Cyprus company's personnel, description of the Cyprus company's business activities, with the KYC documents, so know your client documents, such as two proofs of identity, proof of addresses, maybe proof of wealth of the company shareholders and beneficial owners, bank reference letters, and maybe some other documents which can be required by the department. Then rental and sales agreement of Cyprus company operating offices. Currently, the shared workplace contracts are accepted. So affidavit from Cyprus company's directors confirming the company's shareholders, and Cyprus company's audited accounts for the fiscal years requested by the Immigration Department for companies older than 1 year. So registration of employee following successful company registration at this department. At Civil Registry and Migration Department. Well, following successful registration, employee registration can start, and the first third country nationals to be employed and registered for a maximum of only 1 year, and the following employee for a maximum of 2 years, depending on the contract of employment with the said company. So if the employee currently resides in their own country, then an entry permit must be issued first. So if the employee has recently entered Cyprus, for example, with a pro visa, which is valid, then the registration can be completed with the prospective employee in Cyprus. So there are certain documents to be provided for the employee, such as medical certificates, insurance, bank guarantee, and etc., plus required monthly salary requirements from 1,936 to 3,871 euro, plus work permit holder shall not be absent from Cyprus for more than 90 consecutive days, otherwise work permit may be cancelled. So we will not go into details regarding the documents and procedure of the work permit application today during our webinar. So most importantly, we have identified that the crucial differences in the process of the application for the tax residency certificate under the 60-day rule is that we need to satisfy the criteria of business ties covering employment in Cyprus, where for third country nationals, the work permit is going to be required. So on your screens, you may see the steps and permissions for both European Union citizens and third country nationals. These steps we have already discussed with you previously during the previous slides. So let's cover it once again. So tax residency certificate application, then application for TIN, alien certificate registration, residency registration, right to permission to obtaining permission to work in Cyprus, and either obtaining a yellow slip or work permit. So individuals who are Cyprus tax resident, whether it is determined under the 183-day rule or under the 60-day rule, are subject to tax in Cyprus on their worldwide income. So when and how do you pay actually these taxes? Under the scheme of pay as you earn, the employer shall deduct the amount of tax and social security contributions due to your annual salary. So if your gross annual income exceeds 19,500 euro, you must submit a tax return by 30th of April if submitted manually, or 31st of July if submitted electronically through Taxisnet in the following tax year. So one should take into account the following things. So the tax allowances are available to all taxpayers, but the amount depends on your personal situation. Any deductions you are entitled to for certain types of expenditure. Income from other sources are not taxable under certain rules and conditions. So there are some of them. So, for example, income from dividends and interests, income from employment outside Cyprus, salary, for example, salary earned abroad, and profit from the salary of securities. And the next thing which should be taken into account is income received in the form of retiring gratuity, compensation for death or injuries, approved provident fund, approved pension fund, or other approved funds is exempted from tax. So let's go through the main tax guidelines for Cyprus tax residents. Tax exemptions. So we will look through certain rules and conditions for tax exemptions. So first of all, the non-domicile rules. A Cyprus tax resident individual is exempt from taxation in Cyprus on his, or her worldwide dividend or passive interest income, where the individual is not domiciled in Cyprus for Cyprus tax purposes. So an individual who does not have a domicile of origin in Cyprus, as defined in the wills and succession law, is only considered to be domiciled in Cyprus for tax purposes when the individual has been a tax resident of Cyprus for a period of at least 17 years out of the last 20 years prior to the tax year in the question. So domicile of origin is acquired at birth, and as a rule is the same as the domicile of the father at the time of birth, and in exceptional cases of the mother. So for individuals with domicile of origin in Cyprus, other rules are used to determine the individual's domicile status for tax purposes. So the next point is securities exemption. So the profit from the sale of securities, which excludes shares, bonds, debentures, and options their own, is exempt from taxation in Cyprus, except in certain cases where the value of the share derives from the immovable property located in Cyprus. The next point is employment income exemption for employments exercised in Cyprus. So this exempts from Cyprus income tax for a period of 10 years, which means 50% of remuneration from employment exercised in Cyprus by any individual who was not a tax resident of Cyprus before the commencement of the employment, provided that the annual remuneration exceeds €100,000. And the last one criteria we will discuss with you is the employment income exemption for employment exercised outside Cyprus. So these exempt from Cyprus income tax from employment exercised outside Cyprus for more than 90 days in aggregate in the tax year for a non-Cyprus tax resident. A tax resident employer, or maybe foreign permanent establishment of a Cyprus tax resident employer. So going to the main text, like to sum up the main tax guidelines for Cyprus tax residents. Conclusion, just to make a conclusion, we will say that individuals who are already considered as Cyprus tax resident under the current 183-day rule are not impacted by the new amendment. So those individuals who are not considered as Cyprus tax resident under the current 183-day rule should now assess whether they satisfy the new 60-day rule, which applies as of the 1st of January 2017. So that's at the end of our webinar. I'm glad to tell you that our company's aim is to provide our clients based with personal, cost-effective, and efficient services. And you may see on your screens the services our company provide our clients. So it's the company corporation and maintenance, banking and finance, bookkeeping and accounting services, tax planning, IT and web services, software for businesses, web and marketing services, some legal services, like legal consultations, immigration services, licenses and permit. We have recruitment services. So you may apply and write us if you are interested in them as well. And due to ever increasing importance of CFC regulations for business-related purposes in Cyprus, we have identified how we can help, and we have expanded our services portfolio into property. We have a number of unique properties on the market in Cyprus for investment opportunities, where should you wish to find out more about any of the properties on screen, or any other property we have on file, you can do so by entering our email address in the chat box on screens, and one of our property agents will revert to you shortly. Alternatively, you can visit our website, www.eltomaproperty.com. So really thank you for your time. Hope it was interesting and valuable for you. I think we'll see each other next time. Thank you for your time and have a good day.